Hello everybody, it is Emery48 here, and today's video is on Star Wars Outbound Flight by Timothy Zahn. This book is in the Legends timeline, and it takes place in 27 BBY, which is 1 year after Queen's Shadow. Chapter 1, Dubrak Kento and George Cardass are aboard the Bargain Hunter. Kento seems to be the pilot, Maris Ferrasi is the co-pilot. George has been flying with them for 6 months. The Bargain Hunter jumped into hyperspace as it was being shot at by the Hutts, specifically Praga the Hutt. As they were in hyperspace, their hyperdrive overheated and wailed. After 4 hours of hyperspace travel, Kento finally got the hyperdrive turned off. They were 250 light years into the unknown regions. Praga had followed them. The Bargain Hunter was trapped in a large electronic net from one of the planets in the system. Praga's ship was also coming under fire from the planet. The Bargain Hunter was dead, just a floating hull now. Engines damaged. Praga fought back, but the Bargain Hunter sat there in their net. Praga only lasted 6 minutes before losing 3 ships from the planet. Kento and Maris went to check on the damage and left Cardass in the cockpit to answer any communications from the planet. Chapter 2. Kento and Maris got some engine operations back up and running while the other ships pillaged Praga's ship. They were then escorted into the biggest ship and have sat down at a table with some of the crew. The crew does not speak Basic, but can communicate with Kento and the others in another language that is popular amongst traders in the Outer Rim. They are speaking Sibouth. Commander Mithra Naruto of the Chiss Ascendancy. They are now aboard the Springhawk, which is Picket Force 2 command vessel of the Expansionary Defense Fleet. Expansion and defense in one name sounds very conquery to me. Mithra Naruto has sent the 3 to a room where they can wait as they travel to the Chiss base. Mithra Naruto has summoned George. Mithra Naruto wants George to teach him Basic in return for some valuables for Kento, and teaching George to understand the Chiss language. Mithra Naruto will also teach George the trade language in the unknown regions, Minasiat, along with teaching George about the Chiss and their culture. Mithra Naruto's core name is Thrawn. This is the first introduction of Commander Thrawn in the Star Wars timeline. I know Thrawn is a topic character in one of the more well-known Star Wars books farther down the timeline. So this is kind of an origin story for him, I suppose. Chapter 3. Master Joris Sibouth and his Padawan Lorana Jinsler are meeting with Chancellor Palpatine. Palpatine introduced them to his new assistant, Kinman Doriana. Sibouth is upset with Palpatine. The Senate has cut off some of Sibouth's funding for his Outbound flight project. This project would venture into the unknown regions to research and colonize those areas. Sibouth made a deal to resolve a dispute in Barlock between their local government and the corporate alliance in exchange for full funding restored to his project. Sibouth instructed Lorana to get transport ready for them to Barlock while he told the Jedi Council about their mission. Sibouth thinks Jedi should never show weakness, like moving out of people's way in a hallway, as Jedi are more superior and deserve respect from everyone else. Lorana does not share this sentiment. After Sibouth and Lorana split up, Lorana was being watched by a mystery man for a short time. Palpatine let Doriana go for the day as he was sending him on a mission, taking him to multiple planets. Doriana arrived back to his apartment and called Darth Sidious. Sidious wants him to arrive on Barlock before Sibouth and ensure Sibouth dies on his mission. Doriana does not know that Palpatine and Sidious are the same person, and he is working for both of them. The Council have approved Sibouth's mission, Mace Windu met with Obi-Wan separately and are also going to send Obi-Wan and Anakin to Barlock so Obi-Wan can keep an eye on Sibouth. Chapter 4. The Spring Hawk has arrived at a Chiss base after 3 days of travel. Maris and George have been exchanging language lesson and culture lessons with Thrawn. Kinto has been waiting alone in the room. The base is in the Crusti system. The second planet in the system will likely be colonized in a couple of years. The 9 ruling families are the ruling body of the Chiss. The Chiss captured a Vagaari treasure ship. The Vagaari are a group of slavers and raiders that have been working in the unknown regions for a decade. Thrawn revealed that he has never heard of droids, which is why slavery is still a common issue in the unknown regions. Kinto is now more inclined to stay with the Chiss after seeing the treasure room on the Vagaari ship, as he may get to take some of that for himself when they leave. Chapter 5. Obi-Wan and Anakin met Sibouth and Lorana on their way to the negotiations. Sibouth left Lorana with Obi-Wan and Anakin to explore the city and stay out of the way of negotiations. Obi-Wan reluctantly agreed. The trio went to find food. Lorana is not happy that Obi-Wan and Anakin are also here, but he is meeting with someone soon to carry out the plan against Sibouth. Magistrate Argente is leading the negotiations on Barlock. Jerv Risk, a former bounty hunter, has accompanied him to the planet, but has not entered the negotiations building. Obi-Wan sent Anakin to the bar to grab some snacks so he could eavesdrop on Risk and the bartender's conversation. Obi-Wan didn't hear much. Anakin knocked a drink over. Obi-Wan offered to pay for the drink when the drinker started to threaten Anakin. Once Obi-Wan was done paying, both Risk and Lorana were no longer in the restaurant. Chapter 6. Lorana followed Risk out the restaurant. Risk evaded her follow and captured her. She told him that Sibouth had chosen to come here in favor of Palpatine, but in reluctance of the Council. She also added that Obi-Wan was surprised that Risk and Argente were on Barlock, but had not sent her to follow Risk. Lorana reunited with Obi-Wan and Anakin, telling them of her short time with Risk. Obi-Wan decided they would continue exploring the city. Obi-Wan saw a local around Anakin's age rob a repair shop. Anakin and Lorana got onto a roof to follow the thief. Obi-Wan was on a different roof. The thief met with a large Brolf adult. Brolf is the main species that lives on Barlock. No one could see if what the teen stole was passed off to the adult. Lorana will follow the adult and Anakin will follow the teen. Obi-Wan is headed back down to the road. Obi-Wan is interested in this thief because the parts the teen stole are commonly used in homemade rockets. Chapter 7. Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Lorana are in the Patamine district, which is where Risk had been headed to. Obi-Wan met up with Anakin. They followed the teen thief, Doofgrin, to his home. It seems like Doofgrin had switched the part he had stolen with another part with the adult. Doofgrin is building a split X in his yard. Anakin is going to help him with it while Obi-Wan looks around a little more. Lorana followed the adult and then was cut off by 2 Brolf adults, one of them named Visful. Lorana was able to hide her lightsaber in a bush before they stunned her and took her into a house that seemed abandoned. Doriana was with a Brolf called Patriot in the house across the street from where Visful and his brother were bringing Lorana. Doriana had noticed them bringing her into the house he and Patriot were in, but made them change house. Earlier in the book, Doriana and Lorana were in the same meeting with Palpatine and Sibouth, so Lorana would have recognized him. Doriana is going by Defender amongst the Brolf. Jomphi is the adult Doofgrin had met with and Lorana had been following. Jomphi handed the thrusters off to Migris, who is bringing them to the missile installation site. The Spring Hawk has gone into the asteroid where the Chiss base is. There is a visitor from the 5th ruling family, of direct but peripheral family lineage to Thrawn. Thrawn expects this visit to be a routine survey of the region, as something important or reprimand would likely come from a higher rank, like the 1st or 8th families. Thrawn's visitor was aristocrat Chaff Orm bin Trano, of the 5th ruling family. Thrawn introduced Chaff Orm bin Trano to George, Maris, and Kinto. After a few hours, Chaff Orm bin Trano left the base. Thrawn met with George. Thrawn revealed that he and Chaff Orm bin Trano, along with many of the Chiss, disagree in whether or not preemptive strikes should be used against the Vagaari and other groups. George suggested they analyze the goods the Vagaari had stolen to see where they are mostly attacking. Thrawn asked George to join them so he could pick out artifacts from the Republic. Chapter 8. Obi-Wan cannot get a hold of Lorana over comm. Anakin said that Dufresne told him where Jomphy lived. It is not the same direction he had gone after swapping parts with Dufresne, but that is the only lead they had. Obi-Wan and Anakin bumped into Risk outside Jomphy's house. He has not been there in a while. Risk doesn't know where they are hiding out, but knows about the missile materials they have been gathering. Obi-Wan wants to tell Sibouth what has happened. Sibouth was not happy about the news. Obi-Wan and Anakin went looking for signs in the force of Lorana's lightsaber. When they found it in a bush, Obi-Wan ignited it, baiting out one of Lorana's guards from a house. Obi-Wan broke the guard's weapon and he ran off down the street. Anakin entered the house and found Lorana on the floor unconscious. He had killed one of the Brolf, and 2 others were cowering in a corner. When Obi-Wan came in, he said they would report them to the police and wait for Lorana to recover from the sedative. The Brolf did tell Obi-Wan that there was a human involved in their plot. George, Maris, Kinto, and Thrawn have begun finding pieces of artwork from Republic space that are in the treasure room of the Vagaari ship. Chapter 9. Sibouth and the negotiators are back in the negotiation room. Obi-Wan and Lorana are watching one entrance to the building, and Risk and Anakin are watching the other. The missile came in through Obi-Wan and Lorana's door. They were not able to stop it. Lorana sent a message, danger, through the Force to Sibouth, who stopped the missile with the Force as it entered the negotiation room. Obi-Wan then took the missile out to authorities with Anakin and Lorana. Sibouth stayed to hopefully conclude negotiations. He used the missile attack to convince both sides to come to a deal. Doriana contacted Sidious. The Barlock plan was a success. They had not actually wanted to kill Sibouth. They wanted him to succeed so well that the Senate and Jedi Council fully supported his Outbound flight project. This way they could rid the Republic of not only Sibouth, but also all the other Jedi Sibouth convinced to join him. Chas Uliar, Brace Tarkosa, and Keeley are part of the preparation crew for Outbound flight. They are also roommates. They heard rumors of Sibouth's success and Senate and Jedi Council support. The Jedi Council have approved Sibouth to take 5 other Jedi Masters, including 2 himself, and 11 Jedi Knights on Outbound flight. Mace Windu has asked Obi-Wan to join Outbound flight with Anakin through the unknown regions, part of the expedition. Windu had included a small ship for Obi-Wan and Anakin to return on before leaving the unknown region. Chapter 10. George, Maris, and Kinto have been with Thrawn for 5 weeks. George and Maris have continued to trade language lessons with Thrawn. Admiral Alani of the Chiss Defense Fleet has arrived to take possession of the Vagaari ship. Mithras Cephas, otherwise called Thras, Thrawn's brother, also a syndic of the 8th ruling family, which I don't really fully understand what that means. He is high in importance, but I don't believe he's a military rank. But Thras accompanied Alani. There is some tension between Thras and Thrawn, but also happiness in seeing each other. Thrawn was not expecting Thras. Alani was not pleased. Kinto was documenting the treasure and would be able to keep some. Alani and Thras stayed to take their own inventory of the treasure room. Thrawn, George, and Maris are headed 6 hours away to a Vagaari raid in progress. Thrawn knows Alani will not be happy with him leaving, but he only needed them distracted in the treasure room long enough for him to leave. He will deal with Aralani when he returns. Chapter 11. Thrawn, Maris, and George have come upon the Vagaari raid. It is much more than a pirate raid. The Vagaari are a nomadic people. There are civilians waiting just outside a large battle taking place over the planet the Vagaari warships are fighting over. Thrawn is very concerned that the Vagaari are nomadic because it is going to be more difficult for them to stop their war machine because they have no home planet. The Vagaari were using living shields. They had a metal prison surrounding their warships. Any attack on the Vagaari would kill innocent lives as well. The Vagaari also had a gravity projector, which gives their fleet a gravitational field. This stops enemy ships and their own ships from jumping into hyperspace when they are attacking. Thrawn and the Chiss fighters captured the gravity projector. Thrawn was injured when the Spring Hawk was hit by a missile. Maris was able to cover the hole in his suit until a medic arrived. The hole was taking all of Thrawn's oxygen out of the suit. The medics worked on Thrawn for the first 2 hours of their 6-hour hyperspace journey back to the base. Thrawn thanked Maris and George for saving his life and helping his crew clean up from the damage. When they arrived back to the base, they found Kinto had been put in a cell by Aralani before she left. He had talked back to her when she took the goods he had picked out for himself. She has locked them in a place even Thrawn cannot unlock. Thrawn agreed to let Kinto out of the cell, but there is not much he can do about the treasure. Thras spoke with Thrawn about the attack. Thras is unhappy with Thrawn's decisions, but is going to try to protect him from being removed from his position. Thras did thank Maris and George for saving his brother and allowed them to call him Thras, mostly because they kept pronouncing his full name wrong. Chapter 12. Sibouth and Lorana arrived at Yaga Minor, where Outbound Flight was going through its final preparations. Sibouth had pushed for Lorana to be given the title Jedi Knight and will be taking her with him to continue her training. Lorana does not want to be a part of Outbound Flight. Uliar and Tarkosa are organizing bits stored incorrectly on Outbound Flight. Jedi Master Justin Manning is one of the Jedi who have joined Outbound Flight. Captain Pakmiu of Outbound Flight is showing Obi-Wan and Anakin the Comm Ops Center. Sibouth has accepted Obi-Wan and Anakin on Outbound Flight until the edge of the galaxy. Sibouth is hoping to find Vagaari on this journey. Chancellor Palpatine wants tissue samples and blood taken from all passengers in case of an epidemic. This is very suspicious. I am intrigued at what Palpatine is going to do with blood and tissue samples from dozens of Jedi, especially considering his master, Plagueis, did a lot of experiments. One of the techs on Outbound Flight is Lorana's brother Dean. He is the person who had been following her earlier. He despises Lorana because of how much their parents praised her after giving her up to the Jedi Temple, where the parents had worked before Lorana became a Jedi youngling at 10 months old. Chapter 13. Doriana retrieved the final occupants list from Captain Pakmiu. There were new additions to the Jedi that he wants to alert Sidious of: Lorana, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. Doriana is happy Obi-Wan and Anakin are on Outbound Flight, as they are seen as troublemakers from the Sith. He was not surprised that Lorana was added. He kind of expected her to be on the list anyway, as she was Sibouth's former Padawan. Vice Lord Civ Kav, a Nemoidian, was waiting in Doriana's ship. There is an ambush attack planned against Outbound Flight. Master Stratus is the name Doriana goes by when dealing with Civ Cav and the Trade Federation. Doriana reported to Sidious, who was furious that Anakin was on Outbound Flight. Doriana is going to continue with Civ Cav to rendezvous with the Trade Federation fleet and ambush Outbound Flight. Sidious is going to work on getting Anakin off of Outbound Flight before the ambush, which is scheduled to happen at their first stop in the unknown regions. Chapter 14. Sibouth gave Obi-Wan and Anakin a tour of Outbound Flight. Sibouth is planning on training some of the children on Outbound Flight as Jedi. Master Manning does not agree with Sibouth's plan to take and train the children. Gerard, a young boy, has asked Lorana if he could be tested again for his Force sensitivity, as he is hoping to be trained as a Jedi. Chiss Uliar is annoyed at Manning for taking workers off their scheduled shifts for a Jedi meeting. Obi-Wan stopped Sibouth from taking a child from a family who were resisting. Pekmiyu said they would meet in the morning, and he would hear arguments from both sides before deciding. In the morning meeting, Pekmiyu sided with Sibouth. Although the parents were unhappy, the child seemed excited to begin Jedi training. Lorana met with Jarad and his dad, Presser. She revealed that the test came up negative for Force sensitivity, and Jarad would not be trained as a Jedi. Jarad's parents were relieved. Jarad was slightly disappointed, but had already accepted that he would not become a Jedi. He does have a sister who is an infant. I wonder if they will test her and try to take her to train. Chapter 15. Thrawn gave Thras a tour of Kinto's ship, the Bargain Hunter. Kinto is not happy Maris has been having private meetings with Thrawn, and that she has been keeping these meetings secret from him. Kinto has been learning Chum on his own. He does not trust Thrawn. Lorana is aboard the Trade Federation battleship Darkvenge. The fleet has arrived at the ambush point 11 days before Outbound flight is scheduled to arrive. Sibouth is teaching Anakin the ways of the weapons system on Outbound flight. Sibouth is determined to utilize Jedi Meld, linking all Jedi's minds when in combat and defense of Outbound flight, making them unbeatable, theoretically. Sibouth has foreseen a time where all Jedi will need to take up arms and fight a dark power. He thinks Outbound flight, when it returns roughly a decade from now, may be the only Jedi left ready to save the galaxy. Chapter 16. Thrawn has brought a fleet with George 4 hours from their base to the point in the unknown regions where the Trade Federation fleet is waiting for Outbound flight. George told Thrawn about the Trade Federation and the ability of their fleets. Thrawn has opened a communication channel with the Trade Federation, introducing himself and asked them to identify and state their purpose. Lorana wanted to find out who Mithra, Naruto, and the Chiss were, but Cav decided to cut off the communication channel and attack the Chiss. Thrawn was studying the Trade Federation fleet set into defensive positions. Thrawn was able to attack the outer edge of droid fighters and send them a control to just fly out of battle. Then the Chiss could strike. The Chiss fleet easily defeated the Trade Federation fleet, saving the Darkvenge for them to board. Chapter 17. Cav is not happy with the Darkvenge being taken over by the Chiss. Lorana doesn't care that Cav's pride has been hurt. Lorana wants to try to convince Thrawn to take out Outbound flight for them. Thrawn has left the conversation with George. It has been 5 weeks since Aralani has left with the Vagaari ship. Uliar confronted Sibouth because Manning took over one of the reactor rooms to teach younglings about reactors. Sibouth told him to go away and mind his own business, also pushing him down the hallway with the Force. Chapter 18. Aralani and Thras are asking George about the recent battle with the Trade Federation. Aralani has sent Thrawn on a mission away from base so she can go investigate the battle zone. She is taking George on her investigation. Sibouth has led successful Jedi Meld drills with all of the Jedi Knights and Jedi Masters on Outbound flight. Obi-Wan may want to stay on Outbound flight longer than just Republic space because of how Sibouth is acting. Thrawn instructed Darkvenge to change location. Lorana introduced Thrawn to Sidious over a hollow call. Thrawn is considering taking out Outbound flight for Sidious. Thrawn is taking all of the droid fighters off Darkvenge and some of the droidicas to study. Chapter 19. Aralani, Thras, and George have arrived at the site of the battle between Chiss and Trade Federation. Both the Darkvenge and the Chiss ship are not there. Uliar complained to Lorana that Manning will not let them decorate their mess hall. Manning told Lorana Sibouth had denied their request. Manning doesn't like how Sibouth is trying to take over every aspect of Outbound flight. Manning asked Lorana to talk to Sibouth. Palpatine met Outbound flight at Roxuli, their last stop in the Republic. Palpatine, with clearance from the Jedi Council, needs Obi-Wan, accompanied by Anakin, to help mediate mining disputes on Roxuli, meaning they will no longer be able to travel with Outbound flight. George was questioned by Arlani again. She confined him to his quarters, but he didn't go back to his quarters. He took a Chiss ship and flew it to where the first Vagaari raid he had witnessed happened, where Thrawn stole the gravity projector. The Vagaari were still looting the planet. George made contact with the Vagaari. He has offered them a deal. Chapter 20. George spoke with the Mascara of the Vagaari, their leader. The Vagaari had found droids on George's transport he stole. This convinced the Mascara to attack Thrawn's base, in hope of getting the rest of the droids. George did this to try and have the Vagaari free the bargain hunter and its crew from the Chiss. Thrawn has used the gravity projector to take Outbound flight out of hyperspace before the spot they were planning on stopping. Thrawn has disabled a part of the code that Cav had put into the starfighters to override Thrawn's control. Thrawn wants to open a communications channel with Outbound flight. Thrawn is going to meet with Sibouth on Outbound flight. Uliar wants to talk with Thrawn and try to convince him to get the Jedi off Outbound flight. The Mascara is sending the entire Vagaari fleet to attack the Chiss base. George will have a front row view in one of the prison bubbles as a living shield on the forwardmost warship. Chapter 21. Sibouth and Lorana met with Thrawn. Lorana offered to go around Chiss territory. Sibouth said they would not do that and they would carry on their path, destroying the Chiss if they must. Sibouth caught Uliar trying to talk with Thrawn. He stopped them and got very angry. Mening stepped in, interrupting Sibouth. Mening wants a vote amongst the Jedi about Sibouth's ruling after the Chiss situation has been resolved. This still allows Sibouth to attack the Chiss. Mening had assumed there would have been a peaceful resolution through negotiations, and because he was not in the room, did not know that Sibouth had refused to negotiate with Thrawn. In the hyperspace path between the Vagaari and the Chiss base was Outbound flight. The Vagaari fleet was taken out of hyperspace just as Outbound flight was by the gravity projector under Thrawn's control. Thrawn has spotted the Vagaari and is waiting to see their intentions. He knows it must be George that brought them here. The Vagaari have begun hailing Outbound flight, saying they will surrender or be destroyed. Chapter 22. Thrawn had let George escape with the droids. Sibouth and the Jedi have attacked the Vagaari mines during a mind meld. Once that happened, Thrawn launched his own attack on the Vagaari. Cav is furious as Thrawn is using Trade Federation technology against the wrong opponent. Thrawn reminded Cav how he had taken the starfighters, not been gifted them. Lorana could feel the deaths of the Vagaari in the meld as the droid starfighters controlled by the Chiss fleet destroyed the Vagaari fleet, although the starfighters were avoiding the living shields, keeping the slaves and George alive. The Chiss fleet then attacked Outbound flight, destroying its shields and weapons. Thrawn gave Outbound flight the chance to surrender and return to the Republic. Mening died in the Chiss attack. He regretted he did not stand up to Sibouth sooner. Lorana went to get Uliar and the 57 other people Sibouth had ordered locked in a storage hold for going against Outbound flight. Sibouth began force choking Thrawn through the communications channel. Lorana felt Sibouth's force attack and knew he had fallen to the dark side. Doriana hit the big red button on Thrawn's control panel, hoping it would do something to save Thrawn. It took all of the starfighters, stopped them attacking the Vagaari, and went in to attack Outbound flight. Thrawn had made some adjustments to some of the droid starfighters, adding a large radioactive weapon. 2 were set off in each dreadnought of Outbound flight. Thrawn was released from Sibouth's hold and revealed that only 1 was needed to kill all aboard each individual dreadnought, but he had hoped to use those weapons against the Vagaari warships. Some of the Vagaari warships and civilian ships have escaped. Doriana is going to try to kill Thrawn while the Chiss fight on board the Vagaari ships. The only people that survived on Outbound flight are those in the storage container, as none of the starfighters targeted the storage core. Lorana and the 57 people Sibouth had sentenced to go in there. Chapter 23. It had indeed been a trap for the Vagaari. Thrawn was behind George's escape, which makes sense, but I honestly didn't see it coming. Cav gave Doriana a weapon to kill Thrawn with. Doriana also knows that George knows too much about the Sith and their involvement. Doriana seems hesitant to actually kill Thrawn. Aralani was in on Thrawn's plan. She is bringing the slaves back to their home planet. Thras revealed to George that Aristocra Chaform Bintrano is on his way with vessels from the fifth ruling family. Lorana left the rest of them in the storage area and went to explore how bad the dreadnoughts had been damaged and affected, already knowing no one in the dreadnoughts had survived. Aristocra Chaform Bintrano has arrived with his fleet at Outbound flight. He ordered Aralani to detain Thrawn. Thrawn and Aralani agree no one family should have control of Outbound flight and its resources. Aralani has reluctantly had to detain Thrawn. She's leaving Thras and George on Outbound flight to see if they can either bring it directly to a Defense Fleet base, meaning all of the Chiss would share the resources and knowledge together, or destroy Outbound flight altogether. Thras is planning on steering Outbound flight into a sun and escaping on a shuttle. Lorana found Thras and George at the bridge. Thras shot at Lorana. She deflected the shot. George told him to stop shooting and that she was a Jedi. She told them they couldn't scuttle Outbound flight because there are survivors on board. Thras has suggested an area in newer undeveloped Chiss space to hide Outbound flight that Aristocra Chaform Bintrano won't find. Thras is going to negotiate with the ruling families over the fate of Outbound flight and advocate for its survivors to safely be allowed to return to the Republic. Thrawn, Aristocra, and Aralani are arguing over the fate of Outbound flight when Doriana sees it jump to hyperspace. He alerts the others of the jump. Chapter 24. George left Outbound flight on the transport he and Thras had used to board Outbound flight. Thras is trying to get to Uliar and the rest of the people in the storage core, but with the damage he cannot find a way. They are a couple hours from their destination, and Outbound flight's systems are barely holding together. Aristocra Chaform Bintrano threatened to put George, Kinto, Maris, Doriana, and Thrawn under trial for treason. Aralani reminded Chaform Bintrano that non-Chiss can't be tried for treason, making the trials against George, Kinto, Maris, and Doriana useless and a waste of time. Chaform Bintrano also threatened to remove Thrawn's military rank. Thrawn said if he was no longer military, then he would not need to hand the gravity projector over to the Defense Fleet, and he would give it to the 8th ruling family instead. This did not make Chaform Bintrano happy, but it did stop him from making more threats. Aralani let Thrawn, George, and Doriana return to Thrawn's base. Thrawn told her that the gravity projector would be ready for her at his base whenever she wanted to pick it up. Outbound flight is going to crash land on a planet after many of its systems failed. Chiss and the others have left the storage core and are on the opposite side of the ship from the bridge. Lorana and Thras have committed to sacrificing themselves, having the bridge side hit first in hopes that the rest can survive the impact. Cav attempted to kill Thrawn when they were back aboard the Darkvenge, but Thrawn had reversed the polarity of a droidica shield and put it on Cav's chair, sending the shot back to him, killing Cav. Thrawn revealed Aralani had defeated a small Far Outsiders force and wants to work with Doriana and Sidious in the future against this foe. Through Thrawn, Doriana has offered George a job working and building on a network of Republic contacts. I'm assuming this is for Sidious rather than Palpatine. George told Maris and Kinto that he was taking a job with Doriana, who they still know as Stratus. Kinto and Maris do not know what happened to Outbound flight, just that the initial attack was stopped and it flew away. Presser and Uliar had survived the crash and were off to see if the others had survived. Once they gathered the 57 survivors and some food and medical supplies, they wanted to head to the bridge to investigate the cause of the crash. This was one of my favorite Star Wars novels, and definitely my favorite one in a long while. There were so many different stories going on at once that connected as the story went on, but they all carried on in a way that kept interest to all of them. the whole conclusion of the book was not how I thought the book was going to end, and that is amazing. That is something that's rare in these books. Oftentimes you can kind of predict some of the stuff that's going to happen. Overall, a really good book. Thank you everyone so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.